We'll work on it. Okay. So I do have it on good word that it could start raining 3-ish. So we're going to try to get through this before 3 o'clock, or right around that time. But we're pretty hardy folks around here, so we do carry on in the rain, as long as our electronics are okay. So if it starts to sprinkle a wee bit, just, I don't know, enjoy. It'll be all right. My name is Woody, for those of you who I have not had a chance to say hello or meet. I am one of the 2 camp directors here. And it's a privilege at this point just to really pass this over.
Yay! Thank you!
It's a privilege to pass this over to both trips, and we're just going to start right away. So this is V2 Group A. The leaders were Alicia and Fraser, and we will leave it over to them to tell you all about their trip. So give them a hand, you guys.
G'day folks, hello, bonjour, hola, elanete, uvlacha, oh, ani. Hello, my name is Fraser, as Woody said, and we are V2 Group A, as Woody said. We would like to thank the land for safe passage and its people for allowing us to travel their land. We've had the honor of traveling through Dene and Inuit territories for the last 2 months. To start our welcome back, we are putting down an offering of tobacco to show our thanks.
We began our journey in northern Saskatchewan and made our way north by land and water into the Northwest Territories. Then we hung our right into Nunavut and kept going northeast until we almost made it to the coast. We hung out in Arviat, then flew to Rankin Inlet, Churchill, Winnipeg, and Toronto, then bussed and paddled to where we stand now. Over to Charlotte.
Hi, my name is Charlotte. I'm from Montreal, Quebec. And today I'm going to talk to you about some fun facts from our trip. So first of all, we traveled 888 kilometers total. In terms of equipment, we had to carry 11 expedition packs that were all above 160 pounds from the beginning of trip. We had 1 pack filled with root vegetables, uniquely, 1 pack filled with fuel, and 2 bags filled with spray skirts, and 2 barrels, 2 wanigans, 1 huge paddle bag, 3 mini barrels, and we also had 1 bear fence, which was meant to protect us from polar bears once near the end of trip we'd reach polar bear country. The thing is, we finished our trip a tiny bit early, so we never actually made it to polar bear country, which means that we carried this 45-pound huge awkward fence, anticipating it for the whole trip, for no reason. Now, for food facts, we probably averaged that we burned around 2.4 million calories on this trip. Also consumed. And in terms of amounts, we had 67 kilograms of flour, which could be a fill of flour. Fill over here. We had 82 kilograms of pasta, which is Billy over next to me, plus 10 pounds. We had about meat and rice, 55 kilograms, and 62 kilograms of oats, which would be Kian. And then we had 74 blocks of cheese, 60 sausages, a huge bucket dedicated to Marge, and a bucket of Wow Butter, and 36 liters of tomato paste, which would have taken 96 hours to dehydrate, thanks to Alicia's mom. And overall, at the end of trip, we probably used 1,800 plastic bags used to make everything waterproof. And the total volume of our food would look like 24 barrels filled with food. And my tip for this section, don't put the Marge bucket and the Wow Butter bucket sideways. On to Billy.
Hey, my name is Billy. I'm from Red Lake, Ontario, and I'll be telling you about the Chipman section of our trip, which was the first 8 days. It consisted of 10 kilometers of portaging, interspersed with like a bunch of lakes, big lakes. 7.7 of those kilometers were over 4 days. The packs were also the heaviest at the beginning of the trip. The heaviest one being 172 pounds. So a lot of us had some strategies to carry these packs. Emily and Alicia, they preferred the 20 to 30 step, then take a break strategy. Fraser preferred the tump it and run it strategy. A lot of us enjoyed the go fast now and die later strategy. And all of us rocked the how much further phrase. Yeah, seriously though, it was extremely taxing on our bodies. We even had to resort to drinking water from puddles on the multi-day portages when there weren't any lakes. So yeah, there was also a lot of machine parts, like snow machine parts, ATV parts on the trail, just because we were close to Stony Rapids. So we were able to find the trail. We knew where the trail was all the time because our heads were down. We were heavy packs. We knew where we were going. And yeah, that was the first 8 days, and we made it to Selwyn Lake, completing that section.
Hey, my name is Kian. I'm from Nelson, BC, and I'm talking about the next 14 days of trip, from Selwyn to Snowbird, and then a little onward. So this was our overland section. Before this all started, on Selwyn we had an unfortunate evac. One of our love campers had an illness and had to leave, so that took a day and kind of put us behind schedule, but we trucked on anyways. So we lost the camper, we lost the portager, but we gained a solo boat, which was pretty cool. Or not. So we got onto the river that connected to Snowbird. There's some pretty low water levels. Wasn't too exciting. We had to drag sometimes, had a little bit of portaging. But on this section we did our first nocturnal section. So instead of waking up in the morning and paddling through the day, we woke up in the night and paddled throughout the night. And that was exhausting. That was awful. It was just ridiculous. We'd get to our campsites and some of our campers would be passed out at the wheel, so we could barely get to our sites. But we got there and we survived, and we got to Snowbird, and our first crossing to the first little island, we had a flat water dump, which was sad. It was a decent sized crossing. It wasn't that bad, but the winds picked up really big out of nowhere, and we had a little dump. Fortunately, we only lost 2 paddles, so that's the only thing we lost out of the whole boat that tipped, so that was a big W, I'd say. And so we, because of that, we had to get everything back together and fix everything up. So after we fixed everything up, had a day of preparing, we did another nocturnal night, which was super hard, because this nocturnal night was 20 hours. So we paddled from some early time in the morning to night, and by the time we ended, Phil was fully asleep at the wheel. Like I was joking before, but he actually passed out at the wheel. We finally finished Snowbird, and then we started on to Casbah. And the next section we took was on this little creek. I'm pretty sure it was unnamed, or we never figured out the name. So we deemed it Crappy Creek, because there was no water. No water to be seen. We had to drag over so many rocks. If you see the bottom of our boats, it's mostly white now. There were a lot of alders. We had to, at some points, send 3 or 4 of us campers to go clear a path, and it was pretty intense. But we finally beat that and destroyed that, and it was super fun. After Crappy Creek, we got to some more water, thankfully, but it was more of a lake hoppy section. So I started doing a lot of portages. Some portages, there were trees, which is kind of weird. It's on a Barron's trip. And when there were trees, there were a lot of trees. So you would just be running down with a boat on your shoulders, unable to move anywhere. Or there'd be no trees, and there'd be swamp and muskeg everywhere. So there was no winning in that section. And once we finished that, we finally found some water, and we headed on.
Hi, I'm Carmen. I'm from Bilbao, Spain. And so on day 25, we got to Casbah Lake, which was another one of our big lakes. this one. And we crossed the top of it. We were really lucky with the winds and the weather, so we did the crossing really fast with some nice floating lunches. And the landscape was amazing. We had these smooth, mossy islands, and the water was really clear, but it was starting to get very cold. So on day 27, we got to the Kazan River, and this was our first whitewater finally. And we had these huge sets with massive waves and really big whirlpools and like these really fast currents. So we got to Enadai Lake, this one, on day 28. And we had to cross that whole lake, which was 80k long, so it took a few days. It was the first time we were over the tree line, so the first time we got to see the Barrens, and there were these beautiful hills with really nice rocks. And we saw Caribou Point, which is a famous place where caribous migrate through, and they've migrated there for thousands of years. Jack will talk about that later. And we were also really lucky with the winds and the weather, so we did that crossing pretty quickly as well. And then we finally got to we continued on the Kazan and started our crossover to the Cognac River, and that took 4 days. So by this time was day 32, so the packs were much lighter, so it was much easier to portage, but then there were no trees, so it was very windy, and we had to drag our boats because we literally couldn't move with them. And the trails were much better, and then we got to the Cognac River, and in this crossover section we got to see the Northern Lights finally, and they were beautiful.
Hi, I'm Gabriel. I'm from Toronto, Ontario. So I'll be talking about the Cognac. As Carmen mentioned, we got there day 37 after a crossover section, and we were very happy to see some significant water, although the Cognac was not the river we were looking for. It was slow, very inconsistent, rocky, a lot of sand, and it was kind of disappointing at first. But luckily on day 40, we made it to the river that we wanted to get to, which is a beautiful, consistent, with rapids and amazing scenery. So we were happy to make it there finally on day 40. On day 41, we had this amazing campsite, which I'll talk about a little bit. We deemed it the Elbow because the river made an amazing, really sharp 90-degree turn. And there was this beautiful little hill that we got to climb earlier that day. We stopped at an abandoned mine and all improved our rock collections, which I think Carmen made it to above 30 rocks, which brings me to my tip, is to not bring rock collections, because they're incredibly heavy. So as I mentioned, the Elbow campsite was really stunning, and since we were pushing really hard, we didn't get a lot of time to relax during the day, so when you were not on dishes or dinner or anything, we love to go for hikes, like just me and a couple of the people who weren't doing anything. So that particular day, we hiked up a ridge, and at the top, we were greeted by a beautiful young bull, caribou, about 200 feet away. Didn't really know what we were, just kind of staring at us, and we kind of got lost in its gaze until it was about 10 feet away, and we were just staring into its eyes. And then Juliet snapped us out of our gaze and reminded us that we were 10 feet away from a wild animal that was ready to charge. So we quickly and swiftly made it down the ridge as it followed us, which was very scary. You're looking over your shoulder, you don't want to get trampled. But luckily, about a couple hundred feet from our campsite, it stopped and just watched us walk away. From there we had a pretty scary night, just worried about caribou trampling us. But we made it down the river, and then over the next couple of days, we were in and out of the tree line, which was just stunning. On the left shore, you'd see barren, flat, no trees. It was amazing. And then you'd look to the right shore, and there'd be these beautiful rolling hills with white rock peaks that, if you just look for a second, you'd imagine it's snow, and then you'd have to look again, that's not that high. But it was just amazing. We got to, if you were on your night off, you got to climb a couple of those. So just beautiful, just stunning landscape, stuff we'll never forget. And then, sadly, on day 43, we got windbound. And day 44, we were windbound, which was very confusing, as the lake we were on was only 200 meters wide, but the whitecaps were bigger than any of us had ever seen on flat water. You go down to get water, and the waves are just trying to get water, but there's no water to pick from because the waves are just crashing. You're just getting hit with mist. It's kind of annoying. But it was kind of a blessing in disguise, as I said, we were pushing really hard, and we had a couple of days to kind of relax. Brought out the ukulele, had some really fun jams. And then we also got to go on a group hike, which was a first. We hadn't done that, which was amazing. And luckily, the rest of the Cognac was smooth sailing, just heading down with nice current until we made it to another beautiful northern river in the Thane. So I'll pass it over to Dana.
Can you hear me? I'm Dana. I'm from Brampton, Ontario, and I'm going to talk about the last 6 days of our trip, which were on the Te Anei River. So basically, this river was our fastest current, which took us at about 7 kilometers an hour, our biggest whitewater, and the most amount of thunderstorms and weird weather. The worst was one night when it was so bad, like there was lightning flashing every few seconds and no one slept. It was also the only time we kind of got snow. It was like sunny 1 minute and then hailing the next. Yeah, that was it, basically, for that river.
Hi, I'm Juliette. I'm from Gaspé, Quebec, and I'm going to talk about gear that was either lost or broken. I'll start by listing the lost gear. So, 4 mugs, 1 life jacket, multiple bottles of sunscreen, a fishing rod, 1 buff, 2 baseball caps, our sanity, an LWT flag, a Leatherman, 5 paddles, which left us with only 1 extra paddle for the rest of the trip, a pair of shoes. We also lost the game several times. 2 nice antlers, about 60% of our forks, Carmen's retainer 51 times, and we also lost Emily temporarily in the airport. As for things broken, I broke my mug, down jackets, and several pairs of pants were ripped. Every pair of level 6 dry pants, so do not purchase level 6 dry pants. 3 thermarests, 2 yokes, the zippers on both doors of 1 tent, a Wanigan, an oil container, a spatula, which spent the rest of the trip in our peanut butter bucket, a headlamp, 1 chair, and our backs. We also treated our Nalgene's very poorly on this trip. Within the first 3 days, we melted 2 of them. I'm kind of happy because I got this really nice mug from Jack for my birthday, made out of one of the melted ones. Gabe also lost his Nalgene, and the funny thing is we had 2 perfectly good Nalgenes in one of our packs that were protecting group treats, so we didn't get a new one until day 43, 44. That's it.
Hi, I'm Jack, and I'm from Yellowknife, Northwest Territories, and I'll be talking about the animals that we saw on our trip. So in the Chipman section at first, in the portaging, there wasn't really that much wildlife, just like the odd squirrel and some birds, but the wildlife sort of started in the lakey section of the Chipman. When we started fishing, we were catching lots of northern pike, around 12 pounds mostly, which was a lot of fun and pretty delicious. Shortly after that, we were on to bigger lakes where we were catching lake trout, just small ones, and then as we moved into deeper and deeper lakes, we were catching bigger and bigger trout. And the best was on Casba Lake, where it was crazy. Like, you just throw your lure in and like troll for a couple minutes, and then like we were constantly pulling out like lots of trout. It was super exciting. We also saw a lot of caribou on our trip. The first one we saw was on Enendai Lake. I was paddling with Emily that day, and we just paddled right up to shore where he was standing, this big bull with a massive rack, and we got to just
Ride him.
Emily got to take some awesome pictures, which was pretty sweet. We got pretty close, and then after that we just started seeing more and more caribou. Actually on the Thane we saw 15 in one day at one point, which was just awesome. And I think the final count for the trip was 28, which was super awesome. We also saw some moose on Casba Lake. We saw them like 5 minutes apart from each other, which was pretty cool. We were really lucky not to have any bear encounters or any trouble with any wildlife at all, actually. Although we did see some bears. I saw one on a hike that we went up on. We saw 2 from this really big ridge, but they were both off in the distance. Just nice to take a look at them. And we saw 1 grizzly cub running along the shore on the Kazan. We also at one point saw, I think it was Carmen that noticed some black dots were moving around on a hill on the horizon, and through our binoculars we were able to tell that they were a group of 5 muskox, which was really cool to see, even like just through the binoculars from a distance. didn't look like much, but it's still pretty exciting. Yeah, I think that's it for me. I'll pass off to Phil.
So I'm Phil, and I'm from Ottawa. And I'll be presenting what we dealt with having 13 people on this trip for most of the trip. There were many challenges considering that we were 13 people for 42 days. The biggest problem we faced was having a solo boat, which was really taxing on the people that had to paddle a solo boat because, say, any kind of wind made people have to sort of paddle with a tow and so things like that. Later on trip, we experimented using a kayak paddle, which was really handy on the calm days because you could keep up with the group and just sort of paddle much faster. There are other issues we dealt with, such as the dishes rotation, which got really complicated and only a couple people could understand it. And,
it's going to be simple at home, inshallah.
It also got tricky to divide food because there was 13 of us, and 13 is kind of an awkward number. On the upside, there was a little more food for everyone, and some of Sean's extra gear that we sort of forgot to give to him on the plane came in handy when we lost a lot of paddles, and some life jackets and stuff like that, so it was great.
I'm Emily, I'm from Boston, Massachusetts, and I'm going to be talking about the holidays that we had on trip. So it's a pretty long trip, so we had a lot of them, and basically they just became everyone's favorite excuse for chocolate and a special meal. So we had 3 birthdays on trip. We had Charlotte's, Juliet's, and Gabe's, and birthday festivities included a freshly baked cake, which came with candles, balloons, and frosting, which was delicious and devoured, and rousing renditions of Happy Birthday, your choice of meals for the day, and if you were lucky, you got an extra special wake-up from the leaders. But our first holiday that was non-birthday related was Valentine's Day on day 14. So we had Red Velvet Mocha Energy Bites as a snack, and at night we had a little ceremony where secret admirer cards and notes were given to show all of our love for each other. Our second holiday was Christmas on day 25. We woke up to a Charlie Brown-esque Christmas tree hung with cotton socks. Whether you used those for wiping or wearing was up to your discretion. But they were filled with chocolates and caramel, which were promptly eaten with breakfast. We sang carols throughout the day while paddling, and dinner was a feast of potatoes, stuffing, fish, and fresh cranberry sauce with cranberries that Juliet and I had picked just before dinner, which was amazing. Day 31 was Halloween. We had 2 houses to trick-or-treat at. At the first house you stopped at, you saw Phil the Witch, and he gave you Oreo fudge. It was amazing. At the second house, you met Alicia dressed up as a clean person, and Fraser dressed up as a genie, and they just gave you a chocolate bar out of a magic pot. It was amazing. But other than that, we had anything from a doctor to our very own bearded lady running around that night, so it was very interesting. And we also had Easter on day 44, the highlight of which was an egg hunt. We all lined up as the Easter Bunny hid eggs inside of our tents, and we waited in suspense as Alicia fiddled with a bear banger that was supposed to start the Easter egg hunt, but it was malfunctioning, so we were all standing there waiting in suspense for a really long time. But once it actually did go off, the non-contact rule was quickly broken, elbows were thrown, punches, lots of shoving. Boys, I'm looking at you. I still got lots of eggs, so don't worry about it. But the best part was finding eggs in zippered pockets in places randomly after a trip that hadn't been found during the hunt.
I'm Alicia, the other leader of the trip. I'm from Guelph. I'm going to talk about our stay in Arviat, which is the community we ended in, as well as our journey back here. So as we mentioned, we weren't able to complete all of the distance all the way to Hudson's Bay. We ended up getting picked up just before Hyde Lake. You can see a little N dot there. We got picked up by a helicopter, and it was pretty amazing. The first person we saw for 52 days was this man stepping out of the helicopter, looked exactly like Woody. Woody's doppelganger. Same mannerisms, he was teaching us, same like haircut, he's got the sunglasses on, hat, it was great. We thought it was just hilarious. Then we spent the whole day getting to ride in the helicopter, which was pretty awesome. The canoes were sort of slung beneath us in this net, as well as all the packs and things. And from the air, you could see all the barrens, you could see the rest of our route, we got to see the bay, it was pretty beautiful. And we also got to see polar bears. From the air, which was super great because you weren't worried about being eaten one, but you got to look at them. And then we got to Arviat. This was the first time Wanapa Tay has finished the trip there. We were welcomed by Luke and Ken and Joy, who are friends of Jack and Juliet's parents. And they showed us around. We're extremely friendly. The whole community in itself was extremely friendly and welcoming to us. A lot of them didn't speak a lot of English, so that was pretty cool, getting to experience that. We had a couple that invited us into their house, along with their family and their kids. We cooked them some Arctic char, and they showed us a bunch of different things. We got to try on their mautis, which are like traditional kind of jackets where you can carry a baby in the back. So that was neat. They did some throat singing and various Inuit games. Billy is going to demonstrate one of them super quick. That's called the Alaskan high kick. So basically this guy named Will.
By no means am I an expert at this.
Yeah. The guy who showed us was really quite incredible. He was about Jack's height, but he could kick 7'4", which is way taller than I can reach. And basically you're standing on like one arm and one leg, and then you have to jump up and kick the leg that you're standing on to reach a target. And then land perfectly balanced. Super difficult. And there were a bunch of other games like that we got to try. We also saw a drum dance. It was pretty incredible. Then Luke and his wife Joy let us try raw and cooked muktuk, which is beluga whale, and they just happened to be migrating through like right beside the town as we were there, so it was super fresh and delicious. We also had